My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. When I was 7 years old in 1960, I built my first crystal radio, made up of a galena crystal, a thin wire called a cat's whisker, a coil of copper wire, and a single earpiece. I was able to hear transmissions from Chicago, Canada, Tennessee, and other far-away places. For me at 7, any place outside of New York was considered far away. But that galena crystal was my magic carpet, opening my imagination and my mind. My love affair with crystals amped up in my mid-30s when my path reopened to the subtle energy that surrounds everything. What is the secret of crystals? And if one crystal can change your life, what about an array of crystals? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Kiera Fogg, says that arrays of crystals called grids can be used for health and wellness, abundance and prosperity, protection, love, or simply for inspiration. Kiera is a writer and speaker on modern wellness and spirituality, a certified Reiki practitioner, and an entrepreneur. Her company, Little Box of Rocks, offers healing crystal collections designed to celebrate life's most magical occasions. Her collections have been featured in Goop, the Oprah magazine, Vogue, People, and Good Housekeeping. Her website is littleboxofrocks.com, and she joins me this week to discuss her new book, Crystal Gridwork, The Power of Crystals and Sacred Geometry to Heal, Protect, and Inspire. Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, Kiera Fogg. Good evening, Kiera.
Hi, it's great to be here.
And it's so wonderful to have you join us.
The story that you told, I just love it because when we have our crystal pop-ups, the children, they're always just kind of, they just gravitate to the crystals and their hands are all over them and their parents get all frazzled and it's just beautiful how much crystals really pull to the hearts of children. So I just love that story.
Absolutely. And for me, the young inventor and young scientist at age 7 experimenting with galena crystals, which are actually lead sulfate of all things, which turns out to be a wonderful semiconductor. And that's how it developed my interest in electronics and radio and so on. And also later on in crystals for spiritual purposes. But as I shared, my fascination began when I was 7. So when did you begin your exploration of crystals?
Very similar, actually, at a very similar age. When I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, so our family holidays were spent outdoors, camping and exploring in the Canadian wilderness. And I remember my dad told me this story about this guy who went into the woods very close to where my family would go camping, and he stumbled upon this huge gold mine and picked up a giant nugget of gold and ran back to town and told everybody about it. And apparently, he told the Queen about it. They flew him to England. But something happened. He got sick and he died before he was ever able to share this spot where this gold was. So I became a little bit obsessed with this story, and I'd go out into the woods and be sort of what I thought I was panning for gold, but really what I was finding was pyrite, which is fool's gold. Mm-hmm. So I developed, this love of crystals. I didn't know what they meant. I didn't know anything about their metaphysical properties, but I had this enormous stash of Thunder Bay amethyst and pyrite, and then as I got older, I think it was my early 20s, I started to learn a little bit more about what they actually meant and just went from there.
And when did you first become interested in healing crystals?
Healing crystals, that was in my early 20s. Or no, maybe it was my late 20s because I just had a baby and I had postpartum anxiety really bad. And I started to have panic attacks for the first time in my life. I went into the grocery store one day and just felt like my face was melting off, and I had no idea what was happening. And I sort of turned to crystals as just a way, like a wellness practice to keep myself centered in these situations. So I found myself, I had this little piece of sodalite that I found in a crystal shop, and the man who sold it to me said that it helped with panic attacks, so I carried it everywhere. And then, it just grew from there.
Tell us about sodalite. Let the listeners know who don't know what it is.
So sodalite is an amazing stone for stress and anxiety. We have that in my crystal shop in a bouquet called the Rainstorm bouquet, and that's for stress. And I believe it's also in one of my healing crystal grids in the book. But it's just a really, really powerful gem if you suffer from anxiety, and especially if it's like in public places. It's suggested that if you tuck it into your pocket, it just makes you feel a lot more calm.
So that was your first experience with crystals. How did that lead to your study of wellness, Reiki, and spirituality?
I think it all kind of happened at around that same time. I took a Reiki course with a friend and just became really fascinated with it. I got my Reiki level 1 and 2. And I just sort of, a whole world opens up. I mean, when you first delve into the world of crystals, there's so many different meanings for, if you pick one crystal, there's hundreds of different meanings that you can find for just one. So it took some time to kind of get over that hump of like, it's overwhelming, especially with crystal grids, because there's so many different shapes to learn. But what I really found was that somebody told me when I walked into a shop and was kind of overwhelmed, and he said, you know what, just pick the crystal that most appeals to you. And afterwards, I've seen that in my shops. People come in and they're often really drawn to one particular crystal, and it's not the most sparkly or big, large or beautiful crystal. It's just it's for some reason it calls to them. And so that's what I did. I just kind of created a little collection of my own of rocks that really appealed to me. And then one day I had the idea for my company, and then really sort of delved into all the real meanings and the history of them.
Can you share any other personal anecdotes related to the healing power of crystals?
Personal anecdotes. Well, aside from the sodalite one, I hear hundreds of stories. I had a good friend of mine, and this is actually in the book, Kirsten. Her son was suffering from, he was, I believe he was, what was it? He was being bullied at school, and he was having nightmares. He was having nightmares, and she couldn't figure out what was going on with him, and he didn't want to go to sleep. She was really stressed out. She came to me and she said, I'm at my wit's end. I've talked to the doctor. I've talked to the school. I don't know what's going on. And so I said, you know what, this might sound really out there, but I've heard that moonstone is really great for calming kids. And so she said, you know what, I'll give it a try. So she gave Tyson this little moonstone, and he tucked it under his pillow, and it was amazing because the nightmares stopped. And afterwards, she found out that he was being bullied at school. So it sort of came out after that. And we'll never know if it was the power of the moonstone or, if it was the power of suggestion, his own mind, but something caused that little boy to release his fears and stop having those nightmares. So, and we hear story after story like that in our shop. So it's really amazing to be a part of it.
That's a wonderful story. In addition to the sodalite, do you have any other favorites?
Pyrite. I have a large piece of pyrite that sits on my desk. It's this beautiful sparkly cluster, and it's believed that if you place pyrite in a space that you work, it infuses that area with positive energy. So I really love my pyrite.
Any others?
Clear quartz I feel like it's an underrated crystal. It's pretty common, but it can be charged with any desire or intention. So you can actually, you can hold your clear quartz and you can charge it, think a thought and say, I wish that this gem is programmed with this desire, and it's believed that it retains that energy for you. Mm-hmm. And then when you're done with it, you cleanse it and you do it again. So I think that's really cool.
We're going to talk a little bit more about the preparation of crystals in the second segment. But any other favorites besides those?
Oh, I love so many crystals. I could just go on and on. Our fire agate, for some reason, is one of the most popular crystals in our store. It's this Mexican fire agate, and we cannot keep it in stock. It's like when somebody orders it, it's just like, no, because like it's so hard to keep in stock because people just love it. So I don't know what it is about this Mexican fire agate, but it's also great for business, and if you're career driven or motivated that way, it's powerful. And
what does it look like? What's its color?
It's actually in our success grid in the book, and it's brown with like some sort of, I don't know what to call it, like almost a rust color, which doesn't sound very pretty, but it actually is. It's got these beautiful brown swirling patterns in it that, and each one is quite different too. Like you'll get some that are they've got lots of kind of smoky pale colors in it, and then some that are really dark. So they're really quite magical.
My guest is Kiera Fogg. She's the author of Crystal Gridwork, The Power of Crystals and Sacred Geometry to Heal, Protect, and Inspire. And we'll be back with more of Kiera after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
I want to thank my mommy for loving me so much, for taking me out to the park, for reading me books, for taking
me to the doctor when I broke my foot in ballet rehearsal,
for leaving me alone when I wanted to be alone.
And now, as a grown-up, I'm thankful for being able to take care of you, my dear mom, for having the chance to take you to the park, for reading you those books we enjoy so much, for being able to take you to your therapies after you twisted your ankle, for understanding that sometimes you simply want to be alone.
Roles change without us noticing. And in your new role, we help you help. Visit aarp.org/caregiving to get practical health and wellness tips to provide even better care for your loved one. Remember, visit aarp.org/caregiving. AARP. We help you help. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this evening is Kiera Fogg. She's the author of Crystal Gridwork, The Power of Crystals and Sacred Geometry to Heal, Protect, and Inspire. Kiera, share a little bit more about specific crystals and the specific applications that they have.
Well, crystals tend to fall into about 6 different categories. There are the seeker crystals, which, there's a section in my book that goes over all of this. The seeker crystals, you want to keep those around when you are looking to find something that you don't already have. So those are, like if you want to find a new job, or if you're looking for a new partner, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Then there's the attractor crystals, and these the meanings are based on the crystal energy lattices. So each crystal, if you look at it under a microscope, you're going to see these different patterns, and they all have their own different energy lattices. So the attractor is like a magnet. So when you want to draw something to you, instead of going out and finding it like the seeker, the attractor is going to help you draw to you the circumstances and the things that you want in your life. The enhancer crystals, those are, we just talked about the pyrite. They're like the building block. So if you look at an enhancer crystal, you'll see under a microscope that it's actually made of these like cube shapes, which is why we call it the building block crystal. And then there's the guardian crystals. Those ones, they tend to be dark black in color, and we tend to place those around our grids to keep things that we don't want away from us. So they're the guardians, the protectors. They keep us safe. And then there's the barrier crystals, and those are very similar. Those are crystals that they sort of form like a fence around our grid, and they block out the things that we don't want. And those also tend to be black in color.
I know I personally wear black tourmaline all the time. I am someone who's rather empathic and intuitive, and often have negative energy situations around me. And for me, the black tourmaline is the crystal that helps me and protects me in terms of being in fields of negative energy.
So is that your favorite crystal?
That's my favorite crystal, yes.
Okay, yeah, nice.
And do other people tend to use black tourmaline for the same purpose?
Black tourmaline is amazing for protection. It's a really powerful crystal, but anything black, and in fact, an obsidian arrowhead, you'll find that in the power grid in Crystal Gridwork. It's believed that if you place that under your front doormat at your front door, it keeps negative energy from entering your home. So you might want to try that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Now, we had talked about in the first segment about people walking into your shop and being attracted to certain stones and finding that they're drawn to certain stones. How can we tell if a crystal is right for us to use?
I feel like we all know, like when I've watched people pick up a crystal, like I can see them feeling it, and it's all a matter of when you step into a crystal shop, shut off your mind and listen to your intuition. If a crystal catches your eye, if you think it's particularly, pretty, if you just want to hold one, like that's something to really pay attention to, because I firmly believe that we don't pick our crystals pick us. So, and there is no right or wrong. There are different crystals for different situations, and there's some great books out there that you can get. Like there's one that I use, the Crystal Bible. It's a great book, but you really can't go wrong. I don't think that you can choose the wrong crystal. It's all a matter of tuning in and listening, and our higher selves know what we need. Our higher selves know best, more than what we can look up in a book.
Absolutely. I know that my experience early on with crystals was walking into a crystal shop, as you had mentioned, seeing if I was drawn to a specific crystal and picking it up, holding it in my hand, holding it between my hands, and sometimes actually holding it up against my heart. And if I felt a resonance with that crystal, if I felt a connection, a communication with that crystal, then I knew that crystal was for me.
Yes. Yeah, that's
so beautiful. It's really a visceral experience, isn't it?
Yes. Yep, for sure.
It's something we can feel.
Yes. Yeah. And especially if we're tuned into it, I think it's really important to quiet our minds and just really trust that, you can't pick the wrong crystal.
Absolutely. Now, do crystals need to be prepared before we use them?
Yes.
How do we go about doing that?
Okay, well, there are quite a few ways. I mean, you can clear crystals with, you can use smudge. So you can use burned sweetgrass or white sage, that kind of thing. But my favorite way is just the easiest way. Just run it under water. So I just pick a crystal up, I turn the tap on, and I say, I hold it and I say in my mind, may this crystal be charged with its original intention, and that's it. And so that's the easiest way.
And what about the intention that we have to imbue into the crystal?
Very similar. Just hold it and think a thought. I intend that this crystal be charged for this purpose. And some crystals are better for that than others. Like I mentioned before, the clear quartz is really great for that.
And is this something that requires a specific amount of time, or do we just feel that it's right when we've got it, or how does it work?
You just feel it. You really just feel it. And I think I get a lot of questions like this, and I think people are so concerned about, am I doing it right? And the most important thing to remember is you really can't, it is your intention that's the powerful thing. Your intention is what matters. And I remember even the woman who gave me my Reiki level 1 and 2, that's what she told me. It's like, we're taught, you'll know this because you do Reiki, like there are these sacred symbols that we know, and that I was concerned, well, what if I'm not drawing the symbol right,
Absolutely.
And she said, it's the intention. So even if you're not drawing it right, if you're just saying it in your mind, it's the intention that really matters.
All spiritual work, it's the intention that counts. It's what you have in your heart and your soul, and the intention that you put behind it. That's really what matters.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, my wife has this practice where if crystals have become lost their properties or picked up negativity or what have you, she will soak them in water, and then sometimes she'll put them out on the full moon.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's another really wonderful way to do it.
What is there about the moonlight that makes the crystal better?
I don't know. I don't know what it is with the moon, but I do know that when I put my crystals in the moonlight, they just feel extra special to me. So I don't know what it is. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I don't have all the answers, but there is something about the moonlight, and I have heard that from other people that, like when I charge my crystals under the moonlight, I just feel that they call to me that much more.
I have a friend who loves sugarlight. What is special about sugarlight?
Sugarlight? You know what? That's a new one. I've never heard of it.
It comes from Russia.
Sugarlight. That sounds like it would be really pretty.
It is. It's a purple-colored stone with little dark spots in it. And apparently it's mined in Russia. It comes from Russia. Yeah. And my friend says that is a positive healing stone for that person. Interesting. Russia. No, we have a stone called shungite, which comes out of Russia, and it's dark black, so it's quite different. But yeah, interesting. Now, the grids that you design are put into patterns and employ the concept of sacred geometry. What is sacred geometry? What's the history behind it? Mm-hmm. So if you've ever held up like a pine cone or a leaf or a flower and just looked at it really closely, you'll find that they have these beautiful, intricate, repeating patterns. And if you look at them like under a microscope, they are perfectly symmetrical. And it's quite amazing that these same shapes are repeated over and over throughout nature. And the ancient Romans and the Egyptians, they built their temples and their tombs in these patterns of sacred geometry. So it's believed that the shape, like for instance, the seed of life, you'll see that repeated in pine cones and flowers. And the triangle, you'll see that in temples on, the top of a church, for instance. And the triangle is actually believed to connect us with divine wisdom. So it actually makes sense that it would be on the top of a church. So there are hundreds of different shapes. There's the original shape, and then there's sub shapes within those shapes. The book has the most common shapes. So what I really wanted to do was that, because when I got into sacred geometry and building grids, I was actually really overwhelmed. I didn't it just looked far too complex. It looks almost like a combination between like a science and an art. And I just thought, well, this is not for me. But what I wanted to do with the book was just really break it down and make it super easy.
crystal gridwork does not have to be complicated. So we broke it down, and there are, the most common shapes that we use in sacred geometry, and there actually are flat lays. So you can actually place your crystals directly on the page to make it super easy. But the shapes are as basic as a circle. So the circle is great for things like friendship and connection and teamwork. And then there are more complex shapes like the Star of David, which is really great for releasing stress, or the Flower of Life, which is really great for manifesting goals. So you'll find all of that in the book.
My guest this week on Destination Unlimited is Kiera Fogg. She's the author of Crystal Gridwork, The Power of Crystals and Sacred Geometry to Heal, Protect, and Inspire. Kiera, please share with our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about your work.
Yes, so the book is on Amazon.com, so you can get it there, or you can also get it online at Barnes & Noble. And you can find the rest of my work at littleboxofrocks.com.
I love that name. How did you come up with Little Box of Rocks? That's great.
I was bathing my 6-month-old baby one day, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and the name Little Box of Rocks just popped into my head, and immediately I knew what it was, that I was sending crystals the way we typically send flowers. And I thought, that's brilliant. I wonder if anybody's tried it. And I went online, and nobody had, so I decided to give it a shot.
Brilliant, absolutely wonderful. And we'll be back with more of Kiera Fogg and Crystal Gridwork after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Are you in an interfaith relationship and thinking of getting married? For 18 years, Reverend Lori Sue Brockway has been creating personalized, loving, and romantic ceremonies for couples of all faiths and cultural backgrounds. Reverend Lori Sue's sensitivity to the needs of interfaith couples is reflected in the compassionate and inclusive way she addresses the concerns of parents and families. Reverend Lori Sue is also the author of several best-selling books on interfaith weddings and wedding vows. Selected as one of the top interfaith officiants by New York Magazine, Reverend Lori Sue serves couples in the New York metropolitan area and beyond. Find out more at her website, yourinterfaithwedding.com.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
What does Meals on Wheels do? They deliver meals and smiles to homebound seniors. But Meals on Wheels does something else. They turn a volunteer's lunch break into a meaningful experience.
As small and as simple as a relationship is between a volunteer and a client of Meals on Wheels, it's really so impactful. I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of two people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at AmericaLet'sDoLunch.org. That's AmericaLet'sDoLunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Hi, this is Bill Maher. I can find humor in almost anything, but one thing I never laugh about is cruelty to animals. If you don't get the joke either, write People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, 501 Front Street, Norfolk, Virginia, 23510.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this evening, Kiera Fogg. She's the author of Crystal Gridwork, The Power of Crystals and Sacred Geometry to Heal, Protect, and Inspire. So, Kiera, there's going to be newbies listening to our show tonight. People who have no knowledge, who have never worked with crystals, maybe walked into a shop, admired a crystal or two. How do you introduce this work to newbies, to novices?
Well, there's two different things. So if you're just a complete beginner to crystals, all you really have to know is that just like anything, just like a table or, the car that you're driving or your own body has energy. So different crystals carry different energy makeups. And so different crystals have different meanings and different things that they help us to attract into our lives. So if you're a complete beginner, it can be a little bit overwhelming because there's just so many different crystals. Like I own a crystal shop and I wrote a book and I don't know all the crystals there are. You actually taught me a new crystal when we were talking. So the important thing to know is that you don't have to be an expert. Crystals are for everyone. You can walk into a store and you don't have to know the names of things. You just pay attention to what you gravitate towards. And so that's the most important thing. And then crystal gridwork. That's something that, there's the new or the beginner crystal grids, and then there's like the really complex ones, and there's so many things to know about it. But all you really need to know is you pick a shape that calls to you, and you pick some crystals that really, they've drawn you in. Like I was saying in the last segment, our crystals choose us. And then you really don't have to follow a guide. Like I've created a book and made it really easy. I've done all the research with 30 pre-designed crystal grids with all the crystals that correlate really well with the shape. But you really don't have to do that. There really is no wrong way. You really can just pick a shape and you can place crystals in whatever way that that you like and makes you feel good. And you can set an intention. It really is that simple. So that's where I would suggest starting. The most important thing is that we don't worry about getting it wrong. Like we talked about before, you really can't get it wrong. And so just really tune in and kind of go with the flow and do it to your heart's content.
So I walk into your shop. I'm a newbie. I'm a novice at crystal work. And I walk into your shop and I'm just blown away by all these wonderful, beautiful stones that you have there, and these different arrays and different patterns and all these wonderful things that you have. And I want to do something. So how would you approach me if I walked up to your store and walked in and said, for example, I have the intention, I'd like to learn to work with crystals, and specifically I want to heal a relationship that I'm in or find out the truth about the relationship that I'm in. What would you tell someone?
Rose quartz. So rose quartz is the stone of unconditional love. It's a beautiful, soft pink stone. That's the stone that it's great for self-love, but it's also great for relationships. And so there's the friendship book the friendship grid in my book. And there's also the romance grid. So there's two different, if you're looking for love, that's kind of a different thing. And if you want to heal a broken friendship or romance, that's another thing. So I would say to start with a piece of rose quartz. I've heard that people actually have had really good results. A woman came into my shop and she said, I have this. It's a piece of rose quartz. And she said, I sleep with it every night under my pillow. And I often forget it's there and it plops to the ground. But she loved it and she just lit up when she saw it. So the simplest thing to do would really just be get your hands on a piece of rose quartz and tuck it under your pillow or pop it in a bath.
Okay, and if I wanted to take it to the next level and actually make myself a little grid, what else would I employ beside rose quartz for that purpose?
So I would pick something like the circle, which is super simple. It's a very unifying and harmonizing shape. So that's something that I would probably pick the rose quartz and some clear quartz. If you're looking, say you're in a marriage, emerald is really great. Because emerald, it's the stone of commitment. And then if you're looking to, let's say you've been married for a long time and you want to reinfuse the passion in your relationship, garnet is a really great stone for that. And garnet, it's this beautiful, deep burgundy, and the tumbled stones just look really beautiful. It's one of my favorites. So that's what I would recommend.
Garnet's my birthstone.
Is it? Oh, nice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a beautiful birthstone.
Absolutely. Okay, and let's say that you wanted to have the truth or clarity about a relationship. What would you do for that purpose?
The truth or clarity.
In other words, you don't know whether or not you're with the right person. Is this the right person for me to be with? I want the truth. I want clarity. I want to see beyond the five senses, the dimensions of what my senses tell me and emotionally tell me. How do I find true clarity and truth?
So for that one, I would actually go. I have a wisdom grid in my book. That one is set on a triangle. So the triangle is a great shape for connecting with our angels and for seeking divine wisdom. The shape itself kind of points upwards and really suggests that, it helps you have that base, and then it helps you to connect with your higher power. So I would build a grid based on that shape. And then there are so many different stones that you could pick for clarity. Citrine is really great for finding clarity. Citrine is a really energizing stone. It brings energy and physically, but it also helps you have clear thoughts and sort of clear your mind and really focus. And then the clear quartz is actually really great. Being that it is actually clear is sort of a great symbol for that. But the clear quartz really heightens the energy of other stones. So that set with some citrine on a triangle would work really well. But really, truly, if you're unsure, if you're in the right relationship, the most important thing, as we were talking about before, is the intention. So it doesn't matter what you do. You can't get it wrong. Build a grid with the intention of finding that clarity. And then however you connect, if you meditate, if you pray, do that and tune in. That's the most important thing.
Okay. What about a grid for fending off negativity and negative energy?
So it's funny you're asking about all the circle grids. So that's another one. A really powerful stone for that is actually selenite. So in the home, like blessed home grid in the book, there's the focus stone right in the center is a beautiful selenite sphere, and that is really powerful. And another little tip is, when I had my first son, somebody said, put selenite in his bedroom and that will protect him. So I did that. So it's a great stone for protection. And then on the actual grid in the book, I outlined it with selenite. And also, but if you want a protection grid, if you have black stones, any kind of black stone, it doesn't matter really what kind of black stone you have, those work really well.
Now, I had mentioned my affinity with black tourmaline. What is it about tourmaline that's so effective?
I don't know a whole lot about tourmaline. We don't sell it in our store, so I'm not a big expert on it, but I do know that that black is really powerful at keeping negative energy out. So that's why you're drawn to it for sure.
And the tourmaline crystal that I have, I wear it as a pendant. It also has a shade of green, a dark green, in addition to the black. And I'm not sure exactly what that. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it gives me a feeling not only of protection, but also a feeling of compassion at the same time. So it's protection with compassion.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Sounds beautiful.
So in other words, I'm saying ward off negativity, but by the same token, have compassion for those who are negative.
Right. Yes. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And what about, now, all of these grids are really for healing specifically, even though we don't think of perhaps relationships or prosperity or something as healing. What kind of grid do you use specifically for physical healing?
Physical healing, that's the health grid, and it's based on a spiral. The spiral shape is a shape that is it's intended to inspire constant renewal, so constant regrowth. You'll see the spiral in nature and things like seashells. And so that with the citrine, as I talked about, aventurine, it's really rare. I think there's only one mine of aventurine left in the world, and like when those stones are gone, they're gone. So aventurine is a really special stone. It's a blend of amethyst and citrine. Mm-hmm. And amethyst is it's a really great good for anything stone, but it's really great for health. They say that if you place it in the window, like on a windowsill, it is believed to heal you. Like if you're feeling sick and you place it in a windowsill, it's believed to bring healing energy to whatever room it's in. So yeah, that grid is amethyst as the focus stone, and then citrine and aventurine all shaped in a beautiful spiral, and it works beautifully.
And that's for physical healing. What about emotional healing?
Emotional, I would go right back to that rose quartz. Yeah, the rose quartz is really wonderful because it has a really soft energy about it, and it really works on the heart and helping us to release old energy blockages. So I would definitely suggest that.
Now, I'm 65. I was 65 in January, and I'm in fairly good physical shape, but the bones are starting to creak a little bit, and the joints are starting to get a little stiff. What about for geriatric? What do you got for geriatric?
Well, you do not sound like you're having any problems. You have this beautiful voice. So I would suggest the same thing, something like either the health grid, or there's the renewal grid in the book that's also set in the shape of a spiral. There's a stone called Kyanite, which is really great because you never have to cleanse it. And it's really powerful for healing. If you meditate with it, it's believed to align all of your body's chakras. So that's probably the stone that I would suggest for you.
There you go, rejuvenation. My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Kiera Fogg. She's the author of Crystal Gridwork, The Power of Crystals and Sacred Geometry to Heal, Protect, and Inspire. And we'll be back with more of Kiera after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Change and growth are part of natural life, and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the OMTimes Experts program. With OMTimes Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Hailing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Hailing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
More than 1 million wild animals are killed each year illegally. Poaching is a major threat to our country's wildlife. I'm Tom Barry. I'm an actor with a desire to preserve living space for wildlife. The Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust does just that. Works with private landowners to protect wildlife, to preserve natural habitats. To learn more or to work with the Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust, call 800-729-SAVE. That's 800-729-SAVE, or visit wildlifelandtrust.org. Thank you.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this evening, Kiera Fogg. She's the author of Crystal Gridwork, The Power of Crystals and Sacred Geometry to Heal, Protect, and Inspire. So, the last segment, we're talking about different types of crystal grids that can be used for different applications, for healing, for clarity, for relationships. What about for prosperity?
Prosperity. That goes back to one of my favorite crystals, and one of the building block crystals is the Pyrite. So Pyrite is what is commonly referred to as fool's gold because it looks exactly like gold, but it's an incredibly powerful stone, especially if you're an entrepreneur or if you're business minded at all. It's really great for that. Jet is another one. And Aventurine, they say that if you tuck it in a cash box or anywhere that you keep your money, it's believed to bring prosperity. But there's so many different crystals for prosperity. For years, I've kept a little piece of citrine in the furthest left-hand corner of my house because it's believed to bring abundance and prosperity.
And what type of grid shape would you use for prosperity?
I would use the Seed of Life. The Seed of Life is a really powerful shape for manifesting goals and desires. So the Seed of Life is something that you'd find, say, I don't know, are you familiar with like the Flower of Life and the Seed of Life?
Is that based on the golden mean? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm not sure. It looks a lot like a flower, and it's just intertwining circles. So it's just circles repeated over and over again, and it's a really beautiful shape.
Kind of like a lotus?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know what you're
so
talking about.
I would suggest the Seed of Life, and then in the book, it's called the Success Grid. The focus stone, which is the stone right in the center, is a piece of pyrite. Then we have that stone that I was telling you that keeps selling out in our shop, the Mexican fire agate, and then the pieces of jet and some enhancer crystals. So something that I haven't talked about is with our crystal grids, we can enhance them with other things. So clear quartz is a really great one to just kind of sprinkle around anywhere you like in the grid. It doesn't have to be in a specific pattern. It can be whatever feels right to you. But we also enhance our grids with things like flower petals and seashells and photos of special family members. So really, I always suggest that people get really as creative as they feel and just go with what feels right. If a special item is calling to you, put that on the grid.
So it can be anything, actually, anything that's meaningful to you that fulfills the intention of what you're setting up the grid for.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. And, you used your own work to build your prosperity, to create your business, your entrepreneurship. Tell us that story, please.
Yeah. So I started my company. Well, I was actually a stay-at-home mom. And one day the name Little Box of Rocks popped into my head. And, I thought, I wonder if anybody's tried this. It's brilliant. I looked it up and nobody had tried it. So I set about the next year. I knew nothing about business, like nothing. I took a little business course. And that was around the time that I was carrying that sodalite in my pocket because I was having panic attacks. So it was really a stretch for me. So I took a business course and over the next year just focused on sourcing all the products, designing the packaging, designing the website. I did all the branding myself. And then sort of took a deep breath in 2015. Early 2015, I launched, late 2015, October, I launched the company. 2 months into business, I was sitting at my desk, watching the computer, and order after order after order started coming through the website. And I thought, what the heck is going on? Have we been hacked? I just didn't know, because at that point, sales were okay, but they weren't through the roof. And so I finally was so curious that I ended up messaging one of my customers because I was so new that I didn't even know how to use the analytics on my website. And she said, "Oh, I saw you in Goop," which is Gwyneth Paltrow's website, the Goop gift guide, the Christmas gift guide. Congrats on the placement. And I raced out of my office, and I was screaming because that was like huge. I'd heard of the Goop gift guide forever. And then a couple weeks later, we were featured in Cameron Diaz's gift guide. And that sent, like, there was like a media like frenzy. It was insane. I had journalists calling me, like I couldn't keep up with orders. I went to bed one night, my head was spinning because we were running this out of my house and I was packing orders myself, and like I had all my friends and family helping, and I remember my head was literally spinning, like I had to put my foot on the floor because I was that dizzy from packing orders. And I turned on the TV and my face was on a Canadian show called E-Talk, which is like, it's like Entertainment Tonight. It's like a really popular entertainment show here. And it was just surreal. Business just shot through the roof. And it's funny because when I was writing Crystal Gridwork, I remember talking with the publishers and they wanted me to do a success grid. And I looked at the grid in my office. I'm like, well, this is a success grid. And I'd had it sitting here for like 2 years and kind of not paid attention to it. But it's amazing that, I've walked past that grid every day and not really, I haven't been saying my affirmation with it or anything, but it's like, it just makes you wonder, right?
Well, that I think your story is really important for our listeners to hear. So here's a woman who said she had no background in business, knew nothing about business, but inherently there was a tremendous amount of intention to launch a successful business.
That's right.
And because of the intention and because of this wonderful energy that she created around her, success ensued. So the old story is success is a combination of 98% sweat and or 98% intention and 2% sweat or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing is you showed up. You took ownership of what you wanted in your life. And that's what changed everything, isn't it?
Yeah. And what I've learned is you really don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know everything about business. All you have to do is show up with that intention and with that, walk forward with that faith that things will fall into place. And we were talking, on the break that you've seen so many synchronicities in your life. And I've had the same thing, things just happen and there's this flow. And it's amazing that when you have that intention, every day I have an affirmation that I say to myself. I say, thank you for the miracles, all in your perfect ways and all in your perfect timing. And I just release it. And I think that just, it helps with my anxiety level. Like, okay, I don't have to control everything, but it's amazing the stuff that just has happened and I just think back, like, there's no way that I did that, like there's no way. Like, yes, I took some action there, but a lot had to come together for that to happen.
And I just want listeners, I know that you're going to be checking out her book and her website, but here's a woman who said that she was basically a stay-at-home mom with her kids, and she had this concept and this idea. If you look at her picture, she looks like the most beautiful CEO of a company you've ever seen. She has that presence. She has that presence of not only that physical beauty, but also this determination in her expression. She looks like she could be the head of any major corporation in the world.
No,
and that's the energy she projects, and that's because she projects that energy. She set the intention that this is who she was going to be and who she is, and she was always that way, whether she recognized it at the time or not. And the reason I'm sharing that is because everyone can really aspire to do this if they allow themselves to set the intention and then take ownership.
Yeah, it's so true.
We can all do that. We can all aspire to the greatness as long as we have that intention and we own it. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
When I started my company, I literally took the pictures for my product on my kitchen counter, and those photos were the ones that were used in the Huffington Post next to pictures of Gwyneth Paltrow and Cameron Diaz. So it was just amazing. It was so surreal that like the stay-at-home mom had created this thing with these like kids running around like circles around her. I knew nothing. I felt like a complete imposter. And, I still feel like that. And that doesn't stop success. When you move forward in a spirit of faith and trust in the universe, that the universe will have your back, it just does.
Absolutely. And finally, so this ties into the last question I really have for you. You talk about creating grids in your book to inspire our lives. And obviously you inspired your life. How do grids inspire our lives?
I think they inspire our lives because of that intention. I think our minds are so much more powerful than we can even understand. And I think the act and the ritual of sitting down and building a grid, writing down an intention, placing it under your focus crystal, having an affirmation that you say every day is so powerful. And even if, like I mentioned, I had the success grid sitting in my office and didn't really pay it any attention, but walking past it every day, I think there is something there was something in my subconscious mind that must have absorbed it. And it's a matter of it influencing that part of us that we have control over, but are not completely aware of, and miracles happen from that place.
Absolutely. It's all about intention, setting the intention, taking ownership for what we want in our life, and then going out and making it happen, really.
Yes.
My guest this week, Kiera Fogg. She's the author of Crystal Gridwork, The Power of Crystals and Sacred Geometry to Heal, Protect, and Inspire. Kiera, one more time, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about Little Box of Rocks.
Yeah, so the book can be bought at Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. And you can find more about Little Box of Rocks at littleboxofrocks.com.
And what's next for Kiera?
Next is, I have another company that I'm launching that I'm really excited about it. I can't say much about it, but it's in the wellness sphere and based on the principles of intention. So that'll be coming out in the next year or so. So I'm really excited about that.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for joining us this week on Destination
pleasure.
Unlimited. You're a wonderful guest, and you're a wonderful inspiration to everyone out there who has a dream and wants to fulfill that dream, and with intention can go ahead and do that. Thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you to our listeners for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.